Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Fifth Quarter. I'm Mike Ciarochi, sports editor of Herald-Standard.com, joined as always by George Von Benko, memory lane author and WMBS radio personality. We're here today to discuss the Steelers. I guess we'll call it less than scintillating, 13-9.
It wasn't. It wasn't. They didn't get a lot of style points. Put it that way.
No. And I'm sure Coach Tomlin, Mike Tomlin, will say this at his press conference this week. If he didn't say it post game, NFL football is not about style points. It's about piling wins on top of wins.
He did say that, and
did he?
He said it was a win. We'll take the win, and that's the most important thing.
Move on
from there. But I think the outcome surprised. You and I both thought there was going to be a walk in the park against the Chiefs, and it just never turned out that way. I don't think Pittsburgh. It was one of those games, and correct me if you think I'm wrong. I never really felt threatened until the very end of the game. I thought Pittsburgh was in control,
correct,
but they just weren't putting a lot of points up.
And even when Kansas City got their third field goal to get within a touchdown, I still, I didn't think then, and I don't think now that Kansas City could score a touchdown on the Steelers defense, which is what they needed to get the lead and win the game.
And that turns out to be one of the more interesting stats that comes out of the game. That last drive when Tyler Palka was intercepted to end the drive, that is, I think, 45 consecutive drives that the Chiefs have been on that they haven't scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. A couple of games ago before they crossed that goal line. But, there are several ways to look at this game, too. If Mwelde Moore does not fumble on that early
opening drive.
Of course he did. So, it's revisionist history to think that.
But they really looked good on that drive, and I think that would have been, like a little punch in the mouth right there and say, look, we're not playing with you.
But, and as I alluded to in my column today in Herald-Standard.com, something about Arrowhead Stadium. It's a terrific facility, recently upgraded. It's just a hard place to play.
There have been some interesting Steeler trips to Kansas City over the years.
Back when Marty Schottenheimer was coaching the Chiefs and Bill Cowher was here with the Steelers, it seemed almost like an annual Monday night affair. The Steelers at the Chiefs. Several years in a row that they went there and probably won more than they lost, I believe.
Right, but it was never easy.
No, it never is. Regardless of how good or bad the Chiefs may be, and of course in this case the Steelers still had that loss from a couple of years ago to the Chiefs in their minds, as they were reminded by the coaches a lot about that game. But they made some necessary plays, and it wasn't all ugly for the Steelers. They did get 4 turnovers.
Yeah, well, they only had 6 coming into the game, so they significantly improved that.
Finally the
only drawback on that is, I believe, only one of them led to points. The touchdown.
Probably, a field goal.
Maybe it was
the field goal because Ike Taylor's interception came to the 8-yard line, I believe. I guess we could look that up, actually.
Yeah, but let's just put it this way. They did not take advantage of some of the mistakes that Kansas City made, for the most part.
Okay. Yeah, actually, both the first 2 interceptions led to field goals.
Right.
No, take that back. The second interception led to a touchdown.
Wesley Saunders touchdown. So a field goal and a touchdown. So they did get 10 points of it, but they were,
and that's already after the fumble occurred.
Right.
The fumble was in the first quarter, I believe. Yeah, fumbled. That was just an aborted snap. There's really no excuse for that any time of the season, let alone this far into it. From Kansas City's perspective, but hey, the Steelers, they say turnovers come in bunches, and the bunch finally landed yesterday.
Well, hopefully that will be the start of a trend. I'd like to see that happen more and more because it was quite a drought that they were going through for most of the season. That being said, too, you mentioned Wesley Saunders. I thought that was a neat catch that he made, holding on to the ball and doing the little tap dance with the feet to keep his both feet in.
He's a talented player. His problems in college were all off the field, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Well, he's trying to include himself in the young money group, but they're still debating that.
You got to do a little more than one catch for 2 yards, even though it did score a touchdown. Right. Speaking of the young money, Antonio Brown continues to amaze me. That first drive, he had 2 catches. I noted Ben Roethlisberger completed his first 5 passes in the game for 76 yards, I believe, and two of the passes went to Antonio Brown. Of his 4 catches, I think all 4 of them converted third downs into first downs.
He's becoming more and more of a big play receiver. And the national broadcast crew was talking about him and how much he's sort of added balance to the Steeler receiving corps. The other big story was Hines Ward starting. And Jericho Cotchery sort of was relegated to the 5th receiver. And there were several people that alluded to that on the radio today, wondering what is going on with that situation.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. They're going to continue to not necessarily feature Hines, but I think they're going to keep him in a somewhat prominent role in the offense.
Well, as Bruce Arians pointed out after the game, this is probably the healthiest that Hines has been this late this year for a long time. So, take advantage of some of those things. Although I do like some of the things Cotchery does. I really do.
Something else that happened in the game that kind of fell under the radar a little bit anyway was the illness suffered by Marquise Pouncey. Took him out of the mix. But to me, it showed a lot more about Doug Legursky than it did about Marquise Pouncey. A lot of us were surprised that Marquise couldn't tough it out, but we weren't the ones who were ill. So it's easy for us to say.
But Legursky plugged in at center and did a very workmanlike job. And I heard the interview after the game, and he said, well, that's standard for what we do on the offensive line. We're able to play several different positions, and that's the standard. If somebody goes down, we step up and plug it in.
The standard is the standard. But, I mean, just looking at the early possessions of the third quarter, the first couple of possessions the Steelers had in the second half, the running game really started to click there. I believe, let me turn this back one thing. At halftime, the Steelers had 53 yards rushing. As a team, Rashard Mendenhall only had 21. But in the third quarter, he really started boosting his numbers, ended up with 57 rushing yards, and the team had 108. But this first drive, they went to him three carries he had for a good many yards here, and they passed to him also.
The other thing too that was significant, Polamalu going out early, and he hit his head. Showed it on the tackle he made, and they were careful. And a lot of people were talking. In fact, I heard our good friend Ed Bouchette talking today, and I guess some of the people at chastising for the Steelers were referring to it as a concussion. They're calling it concussion-like symptoms. I don't know what how to differentiate between that.
I mean, you don't really know, and believe me, I'm no doctor either, but I don't think they classify anything a concussion unless there have been tests. That's for the doctors to determine.
Well, apparently they did a battery of things on the sidelines because they were showing him being talked to by the doctors, and then the next thing, he's wearing sweatpants. So you knew right then that he wasn't coming back into the game. And along those lines, I thought Ryan Mundy did a yeoman job filling in. He had 10 tackles, he had an interception, and he was noticeable. He was all over the place.
He was one of 2 Steelers defensive players to come up with their first career interceptions in the game, the other being Keenan Lewis, who had the game sealer at the end of the game. You said you noticed a few things on that play, Keenan Lewis's interception?
Well, that was the one to Bo late in the game on the drive, and Tyler Palko was extremely upset with Bo. And they showed it on the replay several times, and one of the things that Kansas City's offense does, if the receiver puts his hand up when he's going downfield, that's an indication to the quarterback that he's going to break it long. He's going to go long. Well, he broke off the play. And Palko went long, and that's why. But the announcers, and to some extent I thought so too, really chastised Bo for not even making an attempt to catch the ball. He didn't put his arms up.
Yeah.
You know.
And we noted before we started taping too that there were a few Steeler players who didn't seem to go all out to make plays on passes that
I was surprised by the one Mike Wallace play because Mike goes after the ball all the time. And I don't know whether he lost sight of the ball or what, but it was a pass into the end zone, and it's just like he could have caught that for a touchdown.
Yeah. And the other one that we were referring to was the Jericho Cotchery play in the end zone. Although, as you noted, I didn't see this.
Initially they threw a flag on the play, and then they took off the pass interference. But the guy had his hands wrapped around his head and was putting his hands in his helmet. You can't put your hands in a guy's helmet.
Yeah, but it looked like Cotchery was looking around for a penalty flag. Didn't get the call, but if you watch the replays, the ball hit him right in the gut.
Yeah,
all he had to do was kind of get his arms around it. But hey.
Well, they were looking for flags mostly. You saw Antonio Brown and Sanders and some other people doing that. That was, I haven't seen a team play bump and run like that against the Steelers in a long time. They did a pretty good job for the most part.
Yeah, they did. Held Ben Roethlisberger under 200 yards passing for one of the few times this year. I know he had a streak going there, 200 yards passing in so many straight games. We were both a little surprised too. I think that there were only 2 sacks in the game, one for each team. Of course, I was joking a little bit too when I said this earlier, but Tyler Palko was probably too busy turning the ball over to get sacked.
Well, he did throw the interceptions, and to Ben's credit, he did a pretty good job of avoiding the rush. There, he was under duress.
Yes, he was
at certain points in the game.
Tom Bahali and a few of the other Chiefs defenders were in his grill a little bit, but they were only able to sack him one time. And hey, all things being equal, a win is a win is a win. The Steelers will take it. They're tied
they hold serve.
Right, they're tied for the top record in the AFC. With the Bengals coming to town this next Sunday. Should be an interesting rematch, having just played them a few weeks ago.
And they continued to impress because, they were ripe for the picking. Cleveland had them on the ropes.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Andy Dalton once again engineering a little drive, and he hit A.J. Green for the big play to set up the field goal. He continues to impress as a rookie quarterback. So it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but they've got to continue to hold serve because and hope Baltimore stubs their toe.
Yeah, somewhere along the way. One more point to make about this particular game that just happened against Kansas City. Was the ill-fated timeout that Ben Roethlisberger called. He took the blame for that. He said it wasn't called from the sideline or anything, but they had a 4th and 4, I believe it was, and it was later in the game when they were in the lead after the
and they wound up punting,
3-0,
which they would have done anyway.
They took a timeout. Had he just waited, the punt landed about the 1 yard line and bounced right into the end zone for a touchback. You back that up 5 yards, take the penalty. Who knows? Maybe it's down to the 1, maybe it's not. But you wasted a timeout.
Yeah, but a win is a win, and you move on.
Yes, we will take the Steelers will take that win and move on to next week's game. Cincinnati Bengals coming to town. We will be back later in the week to talk to you about that. Until then, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.